And you couldn't hear a thing that I just said. That was great. We're live. This is great. Getting out of the comfort zone of doing just simple recordings and such. We are going live on YouTube. We are going live on Facebook. We are all over the place right now. It's super cool. I've got so many things on the screen right now. It's wild. If you're joining me, I'm willing to bet you are the kind of person looking for something more out of your relationships. Now, maybe that is better performance from your sales team. Maybe that's better performance from your clients or your athletes. Maybe it's just making new friends or dating people, more your vibe. Maybe you're stuck on how to deepen the relationships that you've already got in your life already. If so, good news. I help people just like you find their direction through the art of connection. Catchy, right? My name is Michael Schwartz, for those of you who do not know me, and I have lived a life of being the guy that knows the guy. Now, this video is just a quick glimpse behind the scenes of my signature coaching system, the People Skills Playbook. This methodology is accumulation of nearly 2 decades now in the people business, everything from coaching to entertaining and schmoozing to both the people on the streets and the elite. It all started way back in the day, early in my career in the fitness industry. As you can probably imagine, with me being a personal trainer, I got to meet all sorts of different people from different walks of life. I was blessed with the gift of the gab, and coupled with my dual career in the entertainment industry, I got to practice my people skills on the daily. That is both power and poison, because I soon became aware of how people with people skills thrived, and those that didn't, well, they just flat out sucked to be around. Quite frankly, I believe that my generation is in a serious crisis right now. We're lacking the basic people skills. I find that many people, since coming out of the lockdowns, just simply don't know how to interact with other humans anymore in real life. And I've seen this firsthand. And in my belief, I really, truly do believe that it is getting worse. What I've learned is that the people that suck to be around do 4 things pretty shitty. And I brought this trusty little whiteboard to make my case. Okay. The first thing that they do typically is they talk about themselves a lot. It's what I like to call a me first or a me show, right? So the first thing that they do is they talk a lot about themselves. The second thing is they're boring as batshit. That's an Aussie term that I just learned. Boring. Boom. So we got a me show, we got boring people. Okay. The third thing, I like this. I found they were either a super egomaniac or they were super insecure. They had what we know as the ego or emo. The ego or the emo. There was no in between. It was wild. They just either super into themselves or not into themselves at all. And then the last thing that I found these people that were very unsuccessful did, they made things way too complex. They just talked and made it really confusing for people. And what that did, coupled with the other things, is it pushed people away. And I can definitely understand how talking about me being boring, having an ego or being an emo kid, and making things too complex would push another person away. I can see how that would be frustrating and really difficult to be around for any sustained amount of time. Now, on the contrary, flip that around, I compare it to the things that people did really well, the people that were successful and thriving. And they did things very differently than these 4, right? Quite often the opposite. Okay. What they did, instead of doing the me show, they asked questions. I'm going to run out of room. So let's ask Q's. Okay. So it wasn't about them. They asked questions. Instead of being boring, they broke patterns. So they found ways to make things interesting for the people that they were engaging. So they weren't boring. They would spice up that person's life, just like the Spice Girls, of course, right? Instead of having an ego or being an emo kid, they were super confident. And there's a big difference between the inflated ego and holding an air of confidence. And we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. Right? So they're asking questions, they're breaking patterns, they're confident. And instead of being complex, they were quite simple. They simplified. Right? And those are the 4 areas that I thought, you know what? This is a pretty good foundation for how to build deeper connection. And so what I did is I developed those 4 pillars into the 4 pillars of my signature coaching system, the People Skills Playbook. And now we can dive in a little bit more about the first mistake people use, the people that were not thriving, what they did, having that me first attitude. When you're trying to connect with others, they would go in. What I noticed, anyways, is that they would go into telling them the other person all about what they did, where they're from, how they could help that person. And this is all in my experience as well, as I had a lot of people just like launch into all the stuff that they did rather than seeking first to understand. I mean, the old adage holds true. Things like how many years they've been at the job, what they do for hobbies. It's all aggressive and really annoying, right? And this didn't matter with the being out on. I was out on dates that the woman would be like that at me and telling me all of the amazing things that she was doing, which is like, congrats. And it seemed like an internal and external validation. It was a me show. It didn't matter if it was on a date or if it was in business, or an interview, for instance. It was always seemed to be about a me show. And now here is the thing. To build connection that converts, you've got to hold a conversation. And to do that, you've got to be an interesting person. But Mike, how do you become an interesting person? Oh, great. Glad you asked. If you want to be an interesting person, you've got to be interested in other people. I'll say that again. The most interesting people are the most interested people. Now, how do we do that? But asking questions right there. Let's get rid of this me show thing. Let's pop this on. Ask cues. Okay? Ask questions. That's the first step. That's easy, right? Not just any old questions, right? Questions with a purpose, questions that mean something. We're past the small talk bullshit, okay? We're talking about calibrated questions that get you more of what you want from every single conversation that you find yourself in. That's a really good thing for you because conversations plus connection equals conversion, regardless of what you're selling. I'll put that down here too. That seems like something you'll want to see, okay? Conversation. Convo plus connect equals convert. All right. And that could be a relationship. You want to go on a hot date. You want date number 2. You better show an interesting conversation, deep connection, and able to convert to get to round 2. Same thing with sales or gaining more clients as a personal trainer or a coach or a wellness professional, whatever you're doing. Everything comes down to having quality conversations that deepen connection and convert. Okay. You get those 2, you got this. Okay. Now, number 2, when we're talking about people that are stuck on autopilot and doing the same boring shit, if you're sitting in a sales call, or if you're sitting on a date, it doesn't matter. It's going to be annoying to hear the same kind of things. How do we step out of that? How do we stand out above the noise, right? the same boring black tie events, the same boring sales process, the same boring dates. Let's go for a coffee. Like, come on, let's stretch the imagination. Same boring workouts for you as a coach out there. None of that inspired me to want to be there ever, right? We have to break the chain if we want to make it rain. That was cool, right? Break the chain, make it rain, okay? Break those patterns, break the subconscious patterns, break the conscious patterns, break every single pattern that you possibly can, okay? People go about doing things from a subconscious state, and those who really connect, really inspire, and in the end win business do things differently, okay? You got to stand out. Not too crazy. Stand out to what's comfortable for you, right? It's not like you got to show up with a pink mohawk or something like some crazy kid did in 2017, 2018, right? You don't need to do the craziest thing, but you do have to stand out. You have to separate, and finding what works for you and your personality is a big part of that, right? Whether it could be just as simple as like handwritten cards, going for a business walk and talk meeting instead of just sitting down at the cafe or whatever. Or even just remembering that connection's coffee order so that the next time you meet up, you can show up with the coffee. That's a keynote that I've done many, many times that really helps de-escalate conflict issues in conversation, which is super, super cool. More on that. I can direct you to the link on my YouTube as well. If you want to learn more about how coffee really does help. There's plenty of room to be different, right? And in a really good way. And that will add to that connection factor of each conversation you're in. And what did we just say about connection plus conversation, right? Ding, 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 more conversion, right? So the second point here we're going to highlight again is breaking patterns. Break patterns, break patterns, break patterns, break pattern. I'm going to run out of room. There. Okay. Number 2, break pattern. Okay. Moving on. Da-na-na-na-na. That's our moving on music. The third mistake, right? Again, coming back to the ego and emo thing. There's a big difference between confidence and arrogance, and confidence and egomania. The thing I saw a lot with people that were coming for me or coming to me for help was that they're either really, really into themselves, and they even in the sales process, or they couldn't figure out why people wouldn't connect, is because they were just like all about them, and that just doesn't come off well. Nobody wants to be around that person, right? Or they had no self-confidence whatsoever. They had a whole like imposter syndrome and self-worth issues and things like that. And that's not attractive either. I don't care if it's business or dating. It's not attractive when you're like feeble, right? So finding that balance is a big thing, right? People only, what am I trying to say here? People love to buy things from people that they know, love, and trust. Okay. They'll only buy things from people that they know, love, and trust. So if your ego is inflated or you don't command a room, either side of the coin, you're losing this game 10 times out of 9, to quote the great Outcast. Okay. Confidence creates connection. Okay. I'll say that again. Confidence creates connection. I love to teach people how to create rock star-like confidence so that they can show up on any date, step out on any stage, present at any boardroom, or just go out to the backyard and get their kids to clean up the yard. It's that simple. It's having that authority and confidence to be able to do it, completely confident in yourself, right? Or in themselves. And when we think about that, that leads us into the fourth and final piece, which is those people with complex things. Oftentimes people that fail to have that confidence, they talk and talk and talk and talk, and because they don't actually understand, they don't have that self-security when they're carrying out those conversations. And it leads them into that fourth thing that we were talking about that really, sucks for the people that don't thrive. It's making things too complex. So I'll write down number 3 here is confidence. And number 4 is Anybody playing the home game? Simplify. Now, what do I mean by that when it comes to connection and people skills and all this, right? Just so you guys have a visual. There we go. Okay. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We'll start with the things that go wrong. The last big mistake that I tended to see people make was that they made things way too complicated. Now, there's no such thing, think about it this way from a sales approach, there's no such thing as a confused buyer. They do not buy. They just walk out of the room because they don't know what the hell you just gave them, right? Same thing goes for dating, relationships, you name it, okay? You will not convert if you make things confusing. So if your messaging is off or you tend to make things way too complex, this is affecting your connection for sure. It's about simplifying your systems to take all of the pressure off of you. Now, this applies to the business as well as your dating game. Think about it, right? You don't just walk up and put like a billboard up of like, this is me, here's a poster, apply within. That doesn't work. That in and of itself is complex. There's been no chemistry, no rapport or anything. And if you're doing that, people connect best with people that they know, love, and trust, remember? And if they fail to understand you, you've lost them. So the reason that this whole system works in comparison when you think about simplifying it is that with new levels come new devils. And that's a quote from one of my mentors that I like to use the example of somebody going to the gym with a weight loss goal for the first time. Building strong connection and keeping it works just like when you get fit for the very first time and shed 30 pounds. It takes a different kind of work once you're there to maintain that lifestyle, right? And to continue to stay fit, it's going to take different kind of work, not more or less, but just different. Now you know that you've got to get a good night's rest and avoid distractions like scrolling on the phone and booze and the all-you-can-eat buffets. That stuff wasn't even on the radar when you first started because it was just like, I just got to move more. You had like one focus, right? These things tend to, like once you get to that level, say you're 30 pounds off, now it's like, how do we get to the next level? And that's when you're more aware to all of the other things that are going to make what I call small rocks move mountains. Okay. Now, it's the same thing for connection. So you're going to understand things that weren't on your radar when you first started, like body language cues, voice intonation, and inflection. Personality types, like who that person is, what they like, how you can understand before they even might know, like their personality tendencies, things that are habitual to them because of their personality. Those things won't be on your radar when you first start because it's not applicable. You just have to understand the ABCs, really asking questions. Like that's your first step, right? But once we get there, holy smokes, maybe that means that you're connecting better with your friends and your family. Maybe that means that you can be more of an effective communications leader at the office. Maybe that means that you can get out and attract the right life partner now that you've got more confidence in who you really are. The results will vary depending on who you are, right? The point is we go back to the start by asking questions, breaking patterns, and creating confidence to create a connection that converts one conversation at a time. Now, that's just about it here for me today. I trust that this has given you some insight to what a connection coach can do. And if you're ready, I'd love to invite you to schedule a connection call with me. Now, just so you know, this is a quick 20-minute chat just to get an understanding of where you're at and give you a couple breakthroughs and point you in the right direction. Now, if we like each other, and only if we like each other, and truly think that I can help you and you would like the help, we can schedule another time to talk real business. Now, if you're not quite ready, I get that. Poke around the website, see what others have said about working with me, and be sure to grab a free copy of my book, The ABCs of Creating a Connection, a guide to building meaningful relationships. And when you're ready, reach out, right? Let's connect. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Y'all stay sweet. Peace.